Hello. So, going to do this in two parts since I have already set up Devourer. I wanted to wait and see what I set it up before the 12.0.7 patch, which ended up having no changes to Devourer. So what I'm going to do is kind of I would say brief overview, just kind of give my thoughts in the actual game, which haven't really changed that much since I looked at it in beta, and just kind of go over a few things since I've had a little bit of time to play around with things. So, if you're curious as to why I set this up and why I picked the talents and everything that I did, um, that will be in the second part. If you're curious as to kind of the state of Devourer as it stands now, that's more what this is going to focus on. So, first of all, I would have to say it feels like it's a bit of a mess. To go over some of my impression of the spec so far. So, like I said with beta, it's basically just a reskinned version of Havoc. It feels like it kind of feels like Survival Hunter, but worse, because at least with Survival Hunter there was some overall idea. It was supposed to be a melee spec. I suppose you could argue this is supposed to be a range spec, but it doesn't stay true to that. Um, the abilities are just don't seem to really synergize together that often. The fact that you have to use intellect to me is just bizarre on a spec that uses agility. So that being said, you do have to have two warglaives, which is a problem because let me see here. Yeah, so I got a hero weapon doing the whole Void Forge thing. Got a hero weapon, which I'm perfectly fine with. Haste, mastery, that's exactly what I've kind of been wanting. Also, don't know why this Warglaive, the one that drops from the raid, is unique equip. Didn't realize that. Ended up farming two. Felt bad. Think I took it away from somebody else, but it is what it is. I don't know that there's been another Warglaive that has been unique equip. I mean, the Warglaives of Azeroth, for example, come in a set of two. So it's bizarre to me that this would be unique equip, but I digress. So you do need to have two Warglaives, which means I can't use this weapon because I feel like the effect on the Warglaive is justified, so I should probably keep that. Um, if I was going to be playing this more just as Devourer, which I am not, mainly just using it for World Quest, did the Undermine after the second boss where you need two tanks. And yeah, that's pretty much been it. So I'm not gonna necessarily spend time in queue just to try this out in a dungeon or something like that. So the world quests I feel like are perfectly adequate to playing around and seeing how everything works. So with that being said, if I was going to be doing more variety of content, I might address this better. I am trying to farm the other Warglaive just so I have a higher Warglaive and the appearance. So, but aside from that, so I didn't care for that in beta, don't care for that now. So I had an afterthought. If they were just going to put intellect on Warglaives, why not just let Demon Hunters use ones then? just as rogues need daggers. We could put a wand in our main hand, get intellect, and then just use our offhand, one-handed warglaive as just kind of a stat stick, and just commit more to being in at range spec instead of trying to follow this bouncing in and out of combat, which is, I would say, not really as fleshed out as it could be. Everything else is fine. The only thing that, again, if I was going to be playing this more as like my main DPS spec, I would get different trinkets because I have trinkets for tanking, um, which work perfectly fine. Which brings me to the self-healing, which actually is pretty good with Soul Immolation, I have to say. I'm disappointed that this replaces Immolation Aura. I am disappointed about that because you really don't have an AoE. Um, but it does work well. I would say that you do need to take, yeah, there we go. The talent that lets this reset basically turns it into a, what is it, impending victory. It resets its cooldown upon killing an enemy that yields honor or experience, so that is pretty good. A minute cooldown isn't terrible, but that is, ooh, yeah, that is pretty good. So spontaneous immolation, yeah. Um, you will. That being said, you will die if you mismanage your damage. So in that regard, the trinkets have helped, but yeah, there were some world quests. Some zones, for some reason, the mobs seem more overtuned than others, which is a bit bizarre, but um, yeah, there were a few times I did die. So, but this is definitely an improvement. So I don't feel like self-healing is an issue. That is one positive thing I will say. Um, Otherwise, as I said, the abilities just don't seem to really synergize much together. So they're trying to keep with this whole bouncing in and out of combat thing with Voidblade, and then I just took the Hunt. Kind of felt like I needed something else, and that was the only other ability that I didn't have. So I went ahead and took it away from um, this passive talent, which just increased critical strike damage from 200% to 240. I figured the damage from the Hunt kind of balances that out a bit, so it's it's fine, and it does a little bit of AoE damage, so that will also be nice to have. I do have issues trying to use Void Ray, which is just your I-beam. It's just blue. Um, Fury is a bit of a problem. You do have to, it does take you a minute to generate it. Now, Void Ray doesn't have cooldown, so as long as you have the Fury, you can just repeatedly use this, which is nice. But it does take you a minute to generate the Fury. So, with that being said, I think that was pretty much mostly everything. I think taking, you'll see if you watch the second part where I set the talents, I skipped taking Collapsing Star. When I looked at this in beta, um, trying to get the soul fragments for Void Metamorphosis and then trying to get the soul fragments for Collapsing Star, it's just a lot. So I just skipped most everything that had to do with Collapsing Star, which I do realize is a bit of AoE damage, but still it's not an on-demand. It's just kind of at random chance. I don't particularly care for, again, the changes they've made to Void Metamorphosis. I prefer this work just like it did on the other two specs. The only difference, for some reason, that this has had between Vengeance and Havoc is for Havoc, it has a built-in built-in. Let me see here. Did this replace? Well, actually, I could just go to my spellbook and look. It has a built-in. What is it called? My mind is blinking. Oh, there we go. Infernal Strike. So, that is the only difference. So for Vengeance, it just lets you activate it where you are, which makes sense because it is a bit of an emergency ability. So increases everything, increases healing. So if your health is low, that's primarily when you're going to use it. So you would want to be able to use that where you are. With Havoc, you have to use you have to actually target something and use it, and then you jump there and transform into a demon. So bit annoying, but otherwise functions exactly the same way. So I wish this did as well. Um, Generating soul fragments isn't too bad. I mean, I'm already at 46. I've been playing around on the training dummy here. But that part's not so difficult. It's just kind of a weird thing that you can't use it on this spec when you can use it whenever you want on the others, barring the cooldown. It also doesn't heal like it does on the others. They've leaned hard into the whole once you use the ability, it turns into something else. So, Voidblade and what was it? I think it was Reap. Yeah, transform into something else, which I will show you momentarily when I go over my rotation. Um, but aside from that, when you do use it, it works well enough, I suppose. I mean, I don't really have any complaints about how it works, other than it doesn't help heal you anymore. Yeah, it says gain additional 10% leech while in Metamorphosis, but it just doesn't seem to work the same way for some reason. So if you have soul rendering, which most demon hunters, I imagine, take, it's been a talent that's been in the game for demon hunters in one form or the other for quite a while. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much everything. I mean, it just kind of feels like it's in a state where they're trying to figure out what it is exactly. Um, so what I've been doing is pretty much just set this up as reasonably close as I could to how my tank is set up, just so I could find everything again. So instead of Immolation Aura, I have Voidblade. So instead of doing AoE, this just does single target damage. And then usually I have some melee abilities, but since this is supposed to be a range spec, that's why 6 is empty. Usually you have like one range spell ability to pull with as a tank. So just went ahead and left that empty, and then have Reap, and then Consume. I do like the fact that you can just use Consume at will. That is nice, but still seems to take you a minute to generate enough to use Void Ray, which is supposed to be, if it's like I-Beam, supposed to be like your big damage dealer ability, I think was what they were building up to, and it does less damage than everything you're using to generate Fury to use it. So I think that kind of sums up where Devourer is at the moment. So if it in some way, they talked about wanting to add in more kind of support classes after augmentation. If it did something, even if it was just along the lines of a paladin with a aura, just something that assisted others in a group, I think it would have more benefit. So, yeah. As far as my rotation goes, what I've been doing is at some point starting with Voidblade. And then, as I said, that transforms. And then you're basically just generating. I'll just use consume until you have enough. Consume and reap until you have enough to use Void Ray. And that changes. And that's pretty much it. You just use everything else. The hunt and blur I kind of have for, more emergency situations, or, if I've pulled several mobs, then I'll use it. But I was going to look to see. So, Voidblade, let me see here. There we go. So after dealing damage with the Hunt or Voidblade, Voidblade is replaced with Hungering Slash, which does damage, generating Fury, Soul Fragments, damage reduced by the beyond 8 targets. So a little bit of AoE damage, but not on demand damage. And then Eradecate. Fully channeling Void Ray, upgrade your Reap to Eradecate, which does damage to your primary target, all enemies. Damage reduced beyond 5 targets. Gathers up to 4 nearby souls, so soul fragments, which is what Reap, the effect Reap has. So I don't mind it when you have an ability that turns into another ability. It's kind of nice. I like things to be simplified, so that definitely does work. So Metamorphous here. So yeah, so it changes your abilities. Hello. So I took a look at Devourer in the PTR and came to the conclusion that I think a fair amount of other people did, which was it was basically just a blue reskinned version of Havoc. However, that being said, I have leveled my Demon Hunter to 90 and have been farming new content and old content, and have been asked if I have a DPS spec set up, which I have not. I have only tanked on this character, at least since the War Within, when I got into, started tanking more. So, that being said, I thought it would be interesting to take a look at Havoc, or Devourer, rather, excuse me, and kind of see how it is from the PTR. And in the interest of full disclosure, I am doing this just a few days before the 12.0.7 patch, so I was also curious to see kind of what changes they were making, because I'm seeing where all classes, if not most to all classes, if not most to all specs, are getting some sort of change. So, haven't seen specifically what that is, and I don't particularly care to spoil it. So, kind of like to just see what it is, and then I'll look something up after the fact if I'm curious about one specific thing. But that being said, I have switched over and just done some tweaking to set up the abilities and went ahead and set up the Demon Hunter talents. So I think those should work. As I said, I've been tanking, so with the exception of my trinkets, everything should be good. You do also need to have Warglaives, because Warglaives have intellect, so I had to put back on an older Warglaive, so I'll have to upgrade this if I do very much, or farm a different one. I was disappointed. I farmed the epic one from the current LFR, and they're unique equip for some reason. Why? I didn't even notice it. I felt so bad. I think I stole somebody's Warglaive. But my trinkets are shields and work with healing, so I'm not too worried about it. The DPS specs for Demon Hunter don't typically do a lot of self-healing, or not great. At least that's always been the issue with Havoc. So the only thing that is different as far as the Demon Hunter talents is I had what was it? I think Champion of the Glaive has 2 charges and 10 yards increased range, I think. So I went ahead and took Blazing Path, because this is your shift is like your Fail Rush. So took 2 of those. So there may be tweaking involved. If there's anything major that happens with the patch with this, I will do kind of a follow-up theory crafting type thing. So I'm just going to go ahead and reset the Devourer Talents. I don't know if these are from the PTR, because I copied this character over, so I don't know if they remembered it or if it just set them, but I'm going to reset those. And then the Hero Talents, I was going to set these up, but these are slightly different from what they are for, or I think completely different than what they are for Vengeance. So I decided to go with Void Scarred, so I'll just run through those when I finish everything else, because those probably will have something to do with the Devourer Talents. So you get Void Ray. Let's see here. So Soul Limo. Okay, yeah. So that replaces Immolation Aura. That's fine. So that's your AoE. Consume damage increased. Okay, now what is consume? Consume is like your spell. So drain essence, dealing cosmic damage, castable while moving. Okay. So that's probably good. Generates a soul fragment. So just out of curiosity before we get too far into this. Okay, so mastery is cosmic damage increased. While in void metamorphosis is bonuses. Okay, got that. Shattered souls has an 8% chance to shatter a lesser soul fragment. A fragment of your walking into a soul or casting reap will collect it. So okay, yeah. So granting you fury and healing for 1% of your health. Okay. That's what I wanted to make sure. And then Void Metamorphosis, I assume, also helps with healing like it does for Vengeance, because usually Metamorphosis did the same thing for both specs. Maybe, maybe not. I don't think so. Okay, so that's good to know. So yeah. Okay. So let's see here. So cooldown of soul immolation is reduced by 30 seconds, and what is it now? It is 1 minute. Soul heals for an additional 5% of your health over its duration, and its cooldown is reset upon killing an enemy that heals. Okay, that could be good. trying to think what I have for vengeance, just because that's just kind of what I'm used to, the muscle memory there. What does it heal now? Healing yourself, light your soul flame, healing yourself for 30% of your maximum health, granting fury and shattering. Oh, wait a minute, this doesn't, Okay. So this should actually go here, because it's more of like a cooldown. And blur should actually go here, because I usually use... wait. Okay, so healing, generating fury, and shattering 3. Okay, and this reduces all damage to... Okay, so yeah, those would probably work together. So I take that back with the self-healing, because I don't think you have a choice unless I skip over all of this. I might skip this. Yeah, we might skip this side, because I don't know. Yeah, otherwise I'm not gonna have beam of concentrated void energy, but it doesn't say who it affects. Pretty sure Reap gathers up to 400. Okay, yeah, got that. Unleash your glaive, charge into the target. Yeah, got that. None of these abilities say who they actually affect except for Void Nova. Interesting. Yeah, I like this, but I don't know that I necessarily need that if I get the soul fragments. So I'm thinking I might skip that and see, unless it makes me take it. 1% increased damage, multiple modifications can overlap, void metamorphosis. Okay, so I think this is where I went wrong before. So I took... requires 50. Okay, so do you not get void metamorphosis unless you take this? Collecting 50 soul fragments grants you access to void metamorphosis. Perhaps you do not. They even made disrupt blue. Good grief. Yeah, because that was the problem, was trying to get all the soul fragments to line up to trigger these other abilities. Soul fragments grant 1 increased damage. Okay, that's fine. After fully channeling Void Ray, the cooldown of Reap is reset, and your next Reap will collect up to 6. Okay, that's fine. Yep, and I think it's going to make me take something. So... okay, so this gives me access to Void Metamorphosis. Your Consume and Reap are enhanced, and your Fury will slowly drain. Additionally, Void Ray reduces your Fury drain, deals increased damage, and no longer consumes Fury. And then Collapsing Start. Okay, so this requires 50. This requires 30. Channel an immense amount of void energy to a single target. Case with blast, dealing damage to your target and damage to nearby. Okay, see, that specifies. While casting Collapsing Star, your drain is significantly reduced. Okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to take... Okay, so let's see if we can skip these. I think that's... Yeah, I think this is where I went wrong when I was trying to do this before. So, yeah, that being said, I think the reduced cooldown is probably better. Heals for an additional for its duration. Cooldown is reset upon killing. That could be good as well. That might be better. Reduce cooldown and one additional charge, which I don't, not really liking. Yeah, because 1 minute's not that long. But then if I'm doing, like, I'm thinking like dungeon or world quest, this might be better. So, Reap now generates 10 Fury. Voidblade damage increased. Okay, so Reap is the one with 2 charges. So I think, yeah, so it'll do 20 Fury. So I'm thinking that's probably going to be better. And I'm going to have to take Void Metamorphosis to continue. Okay. So your critical strike chance is increased. While in combat, generate 1 soul fragment every 12 seconds. While out of combat, you will shortly build towards your Void Metamorphosis up to 25 soul fragments. Damage from Void Ray has a 20% chance to grant a soul fragment. Each soul fragment gathered by Reap increases the damage by 8. Okay, that's good, and that's good. Critical strike chance. Yeah, that's fine. What is my critical strike chance? 13. Because for some reason, for Demon Hunters, critical strike grants parry. So, and parry tends to slow you down. So I have I tend to watch that and not stack it maybe as high as I would otherwise. So, grants an additional 12. The duration of Feast of Souls is increased by 1. Soul fragments gather. Soul fragments grant 1% increase. Damage, multiple application. Wait. Feast of Souls is increased by 1 second. Okay, I see. So, gotcha. So Reap gains yet. Okay, so additional charge. So I'm seeing things from the talents that I already had, just so there's not confusion. So if I have 2 now, I don't get 3. It's still counting me having this to begin with. Because for some reason, it doesn't reset your abilities when you reset the talents, which I always thought was odd. How were you supposed to compare? So, Reap's cooldown is reduced by your haste. That, I think, could be good. Yeah, because I do have higher haste. So, yeah. So that could be good. I like that. Your chance to shatter a soul fragment from enemies you damage is increased by 2%, 4%. Void Ray's cooldown during Void Metamorphosis is reduced by 2 seconds. Okay. Yeah. Multiple applications may overlap. Yeah, I'm not really worried about that. Okay, so Hungering Slash. After dealing damage with the Hunt or Voidblade, Voidblade is replaced with Hungering Slash, a Violently Slash, or Synth around. Voidblade. Okay, so that's an additional one. Okay. I've seen a lot of other Demon Hunters take this, so why not? It reminds me of the Death Knight has a very similar ability. Your mastery is increased, sure. Word rage damage does 80% more damage when damaging 3 targets. Oh, nice. Void rate is... Okay, so that is the channeled ability, so that's fine. I need to put a point into one other thing. Cooldown, during Metamorphous is reduced. Damage from Void Ray has a 200% chance to grant a soul fragment. Sure. Okay, so Collapsing Star was critical strikes. Cosmic damage deal increased by 3%. Damaging Star's critical strike critical strike damage is increased by 50% of your critical strike chance. Entering Void Metamorphosis causes your soul to erupt, granting 5. Okay. Those are actually all good. I don't think I've actually taken all of these talents on a character. Of the 4? Yeah, 4 I've leveled so far. Hungering Slash and Voidbold's critical strike chances increased by 15%. Okay. Voidblade damage increased by 25%. Hungering Slash deals 50% increased damage to target. Okay. Since I have a little bit lower critical strike chance, then I think what I should probably have... Again, critical strike chance equals parry as vengeance, so... I tend to manage that a bit, so it's a bit lower. So I think some of this might help make up for that. Damage increased by 20%, sure. Collapsing Star, didn't take anything for Collapsing Star. Reap and Consume. What is Consume? Okay, that's Consume. Okay. Gain 10 Fury. Expires for each unused soul. Sting, have increased damage. Okay, yeah. Gotta be careful, I don't want to gain too much. Okay, so didn't take Collapsing Star, so I really don't need any of that. Okay. So I didn't do anything there, and that's the hunt. Which would be nice to have, I think. I don't know. I don't know if I actually need that. Rooting them in place. When I tried this on Vengeance, I think it was Vengeance? Yeah, it was either Vengeance or when I was looking at Devourer in the PTR. It was a bit disappointing. It was a bit lackluster. It didn't do kind of what I remember it doing, so... Okay, so yeah, sure, we'll just increase damage, then that's perfectly fine. Your damaging critical strikes, deal 240 instead of 200, yeah, that's fine. Expires, yeah, increases your damage. After fully channeling, sure. Yeah, okay. So they really want you to build into so fully channeling Void Ray, upgrade your Reap. Okay. Slam your scythe to the ground. Interesting. So Collapsing Star now generates 3 soul fragments, so I'd have to take an ability I can't use for one that I can. Voidblade in the hunt. Increases the damage of your increases the damage your target takes for 10 seconds. Multiple applications may overlap. Sure, because again, I'm thinking, you know, you want to do as much damage as possible because you're not going to have necessarily a lot of reliable healing. So I think I am going to take this because I kind of want this. So for what sense that makes. How long does Metamorphosis last? Does it say? I guess as long as you have Fury? Is that what I'm to understand, I think? Consume deals 10% increased damage, cast damage reduced. Sure. And now we reach that all too common point where you're trying to figure out how to round out the abilities in a way that makes sense. Yeah, Void Metamorphosis, I'm fine. We're just going to skip Collapsing Star and see what happens. Sure, I have a similar ability for Immolation Aura for Vengeance, and that works perfectly fine. So I did have a bit of trouble generating Fury until I took the talent where Immolation Aura was helping. So I may need all of those to do. I may not. So Voidblade in the hunt briefly reduce your Fury drain while in Void Metamorphosis. Sure. And then we'll go ahead and save those changes. So Voidblade and Reap both get upgraded and changed to things. So now to go over the hero talents. So Void Metamorphosis now greatly empowers Voidblade and Hungering Slash while Demon Form is active. The first cast of each empowered ability induces a Void Surge, causing you to explode with Void Energy, dealing cosmic damage to nearby enemies, dealing reduced damage, targets beyond 8. Okay, so Void Nova slows and reduces attack and cast speed. Movement speed increased by 1% per your 10 fairy. No, I like that. Void Surge deals. Okay, well, it strikes a single target. Reduces. Each additional target reduces this bonus by 10. Okay, you're gonna have to take everything anyway, so 5% of all non-fire damage taken is instead taken as fire damage over 6 seconds. Fire damage taken reduced by 10. Leech granted by soul rendering. I think I have that right. Yes. Okay. Leech granted by soul rendering increased by 2%. Okay. An additional 2% while Void Metamorphosis is active. Okay. So was I missing something here? Gain additional 10%. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Right. Okay. So that might have been good that I ended up with Void Metamorphosis then. So, yeah, want that. Because that's... Unfortunately, I can't use it at will like I can with Vengeance, because that is kind of my emergency ability. That's kind of what it's for. least that's the way I use it. So, cosmic damage increase. Effect is doubled while in demon form. Your blades burn with cosmic energy, causing your Voidblade, Hungering Slash, and Throw-Glaives to deal an additional cosmic damage. Reap damage increased. Okay. Yeah, now ironically they didn't make Throw-Glaives blue. I guess because when you throw it, it throws a Glaive of Azeroth. So, like the blade that, the legendary blade. Unless you have the glyph that causes it to throw your main hand weapon. I think it's your main hand weapon. Your main hand or equipped. I'm pretty sure it's your main hand weapon. Entering Void, Metamorphosis resets the cooldown of Voidblade and the Hut. So the Hut deals 20% increased damage and resets the cooldown of Soul Immolation. Ah, okay. Good to know. 7 more. The effect of your demon form persists outside of it in a weakened state, increasing mastery. Okay. Soul Immolation has a 25% chance to reignite after it expires, reapplying its effect. Nice, I like that. Maximum Fury increase, Void Raid damage increase. Okay, that's helpful. Void Raid applies Student of Suffering to you, increasing mastery and granting 2 Fury. Okay. Hungering Slash has 2-yard increased radius and 100% critical. Yeah, I think that's probably better. Intellect increased by 15 while not in demon form. Okay, it's very weird to me that they went with intellect instead of just sticking with agility. Entering demon form causes your next void surge to repeat after a short delay. Okay, and then finally, activating Void Metamorphosis greatly empowers the Hut. Void surge damage increased by 10% for each time it previously triggered while your demon form was active.